After the dust of the Nirnath Arnediad had settled, the skies of Beleriand were shrouded in a despair never before known. Morgoth's victory was so total that all resistance seemed to have lost its meaning. In the year First Age 473, in Dorlaman, then enslaved by the Easterlings, Morwen gave birth to a daughter, whom she named Nienor, meaning mourning. This name seemed to forebode that the child would be haunted by sorrow throughout her life. To protect her only son, Turin, Morwen endured the agony of parting and, when he was 8 years old, sent him away to distant Doriath. Escorted by 2 aged servants, young Turin traversed the perilous wilds and finally reached the kingdom protected by the Girdle of Melian. King Thingol, mindful of his alliance with the House of Hadar and of the heroic deeds of Burin, took Turin as his foster son, treating him as his own. Yet, Doriath was not a place of absolute safety. After the Nirnath, Morgoth directed his forces toward the final centers of resistance, the havens of the Falas. Berthambar and Aglarist, those beautiful white cities, fell one after another under the relentless onslaught of the Orc armies. Círdan the Shipwright, leading a remnant of the Elves, sailed away on their final vessels, fleeing south along the coast until they established a last refuge on an island at the mouths of Sur-Ion. Henceforth, the coastline of Beleriand fell into enemy hands. In the hidden city of Gondolin, King Turgon, having heard of the fall of the Falas, dispatched 7 ships of messengers led by Voronoi, instructing them to travel to the west to plead for the aid of the Vala. However, the seas were still shrouded by wrathful storms, and all the ships, together with their hopes, sank into the abyss. In Doriath, Turin grew to manhood. Inheriting the valor of his father and the pride of his mother, he soon became an outstanding warrior. In First Age 481, he joined the March Wardens of Doriath, fighting alongside the great elven warrior Beleg Cuthalion. His black hair, his melancholy eyes, and the reckless ferocity with which he fought brought him great renown, but also drew envy and resentment. In First Age 484, a tragic accident occurred. Saros, an important counselor to King Thingol, grew envious of the favor Turin received and repeatedly humiliated him. During one quarrel, Turin was thoroughly enraged. He pursued Saros, leading the latter to stumble in his panic and fall to his death in a deep ravine. Though Turin had not intended to kill him, he knew he would face a harsh judgment. Driven by pride and fear, he chose to flee Doriath, becoming an outlaw. However, after he had departed, King Thingol investigated the matter and ultimately pardoned him. His dear friend Beleg volunteered to seek him out, carrying the king's pardon and a black sword named Anglical, hoping to bring him back to Doriath. But the curse laid by Morgoth clung to Turin like an unseen phantom. In First Age 485, Turin, living in exile, joined a band of outlaws. In a clash, he slew their leader, Forweg, and was chosen by the others as their new captain. From then on, he lived a life of plunder and slaughter, straying ever further from the light he had once known. 1 year later, in First Age 486, Beleg finally found Turin and his band in the wild. He presented the king's pardon and beseeched him to return to Doriath. But Turin, shackled by his stubborn pride, refused Beleg's offer, believing that he could no longer turn back. At this time, they encountered Mim, the last of the petty dwarfs. Turin spared Mim's life, and in exchange, Mim agreed to let them dwell in his secret abode, the caves atop Amon Rud. That winter, Beleg, unable to bear watching his dear friend fall into darkness, renounced all his honors in Doriath and returned to Turin's side, living the life of an outlaw with him. In the north, in Hithlum, the survivors of the Nirnath also bore their fates. In First Age 488, Huor's young son, Tuor, was captured by the Easterling chieftain Lorgan and became a slave. He lived a life of hardship, yet within him burned an unyielding flame. The shadow of the curse soon fell upon Amon Rud. In First Age 489, Mim the petty dwarf, out of resentment for Turin's band occupying his home and to save himself, betrayed their location to the Orcs. The Orc host launched a surprise attack on Amon Rud. Turin's band was all but destroyed, and he himself was taken alive, prepared to be marched to Angband. Only Beleg, through his matchless woodcraft, escaped the slaughter. During his flight, Beleg met Gwyndr, a prince of Nargothrond who had escaped from Angband. Gwyndr had been captured at the Nirnath and suffered endless torture, no longer resembling the warrior he once was. The two joined forces and tracked the Orc host that held Turin. On a stormy night, they slipped into the camp while the Orcs slept. Beleg used his black sword, Anglical, to sever the bonds holding Turin. Yet, as he prepared to drag the unconscious Turin away, the sword slipped, grazing Turin's foot. Turin awakened in a daze, mistaking the dark shape before him for the orcs who had tortured him. He snatched up the black sword and thrust it through the heart of his dear friend, Beleg. When a flash of lightning illuminated the sky, and Turin beheld that he had slain with his own hands the friend who had forsaken all and traveled across the world to save him, he utterly collapsed. He sat dazed beside Beleg's corpse, exposed to the wind and rain, until the dawn. Morgotha's curse had, for the first time, revealed its vicious power to him in the most cruel and direct manner. In First Age 490, Gwyndr forcibly brought the broken Turin away from that place of sorrow. They arrived at Nargothrond. Turin concealed his true identity, calling himself Agerwen, meaning the blood-stained. With his exceptional prowess and command, he soon won the trust of King Ordreth and became the captain of the host of Nargothrond. He changed the strategy of secret warfare that Nargothrond had previously practiced, advocating for open strikes, and persuaded the king to build a magnificent stone bridge over the river Nerag to facilitate the movement of his armies. His valor brought Nargothrond temporary victory and glory, but his reckless pride also thoroughly exposed the location of the hidden kingdom, planting the seeds for its future destruction. Meanwhile, in First Age 491, Tuor, through his exceptional strength and courage, successfully escaped from Easterling slavery and became a lone wanderer. In Doriath, Morwen, and Yenor in First Age 494 finally could no longer endure the oppression of the Easterlings and fled to Doriath, seeking refuge. Yet, they found that Turin was no longer there. First Age 495 was another turning point in the fate of Beleriand. In the spring, Tuor, guided by the power of Omo, Lord of Waters, arrived at the coast of Nevrast. There, he discovered the armor left by King Turgon according to a divine oracle. When he donned that armor, Omo himself appeared to him, commanding him to journey to the hidden city of Gondolin to deliver a final warning to King Turgon. By the sea, Tuor met Voronwy, the only messenger to survive the Nirnath. The two traveled together, embarking on the perilous journey to find Gondolin, arriving successfully on the 19th of November of that year. Yet, even as the seeds of hope were sown in Gondolin, the sickle of destruction was swung toward other parts of Beleriand. An orc host invaded the forest of Brethil. Hander, chieftain of the House of Holeth, was slain, and the crippled Brander took up the burden of leadership in despair. In the south, Morgoth, having learned the location of Nargothrond, dispatched the dragon Glorung, leading an army, to launch a devastating attack. On the plain of Tumhalad, the host of Nargothrond was utterly routed. King Ordreth fell in battle, and Gwyndr was mortally wounded. Before he died, he told Turin that only he could save the captured princess Findolas. However, when Turin arrived at the stone bridge he himself had built, he was intercepted by Glorung. The dragon used its magical eyes to freeze Turin in place and deluded him with malicious lies, that his mother and sister were suffering in Dorlaman and needed him more than Findolas. Bewitched by the dragon's spell, and out of deep concern for his own family, Turin abandoned his attempt to save Findolas and turned north, racing frantically toward Dorlaman. Findolas, along with all the women of Nargothrond, was dragged away by orcs and, during the march, was cruelly pinned to trees with spears. Nargothrond, that magnificent underground kingdom, was thus reduced to ruins in fire and dragon breath. Gil-galad, the young son of King Ordreth, led a handful of survivors in flight to the havens at the mouths of Surion. Once again, through Turin's twisted good intentions, Morgotha's curse had accomplished its devastating masterpiece.